Well, Ben Carson has really stepped in it now. Listen to what he's saying.
Personal theory is that Joseph built the pyramids in order to store grain. Now, all the archaeologists think that they were made for the pharaoh's graves, but it would have to be something awfully big. When you stop and think about it, I don't think it would just disappear over the course of time to store that much grain. And when you look at the way the pyramids are made,
yeah, look at the way they're made, Numbskull. There's hardly any open space on the inside, even though it's big on the outside, kind of like a 1978 Ford Granada, as I recall.
What's weird about this is that he said that at some commencement speech too, which is just really an oddity. But you look at the amount of open space in there, and if you were to just make that into cubes and set it out beside the pyramid, it's like 1/1000th the size of it. So why would you have done something foolish as that? But he believed that crap, and he continues to believe it. I couldn't believe what he followed up with. I thought he was going to come back and go, nah, but no, watch this.
With many chambers that are hermetically sealed, they would have to be that way for a reason.
Okay, so as I pointed out, Maeve, that was 1998, but he was asked about this recently, and what's happened today?
Did you notice she's having a real hard time keeping a straight face?
Right,
Some people believe in the Bible, like I do, and don't find that to be silly at all, and believe that God created the earth and don't find that to be silly at all. The secular progressives try to ridicule it anytime it comes up, and they're welcome to do that.
This isn't...
I can't believe that he still follows that after people have made fun of him for so many years. I mean, I guess you can defend a foolish comment to the end, but it's just easier to make the idea that they built some other pins that later got destroyed down and pulled apart because they wanted the blocks for something else. Why do you have to pin it to a biblical moment? And why do you have, we know that pyramids took years to build. Joseph had like 7 years to get ready for the famine that was coming up or something. They didn't build those pyramids that quick. It just makes it a fallacy. I mean, it's silly. But look at how he just believes this shit. And it shows you how people can believe stuff.
The first time, Carson has gone off into la-la land and believed in all kinds of crazy stuff that is without support. And I don't just mean religious stuff, but just stuff that is, shall we say, easily disproven. For example, in this movie produced some years ago, he was younger. Take a look.
What's this?
To understand a history that is not a history based in slavery, but a history based in royalty.
Really? This is where they get the big twist. This is some propaganda shit that just started here recently, people. Just in your last generation before you, and your parents start passing off these ideas that it was Cain's.
Turn to Glory, the powerful stirring of the black man. Based upon the book endorsed by such esteemed men like Bill Cosby, Julius Erving, Tony Evans, Tony Campolo, Ben Carson, Ivan Van Sertima, Bishop Eddie Long, and many others, narrated by Adrian Branch.
Everybody always wants to know, what did my ancestors do?
This whole movie...
Well, okay, let's look at Nefertiti and her slender nose and her looks, and what they're really avoiding in this shot is the fact that one of her eyes, her right eye in this vision, is gone, but her left eye is still there, and it's made of blue lapis lazuli. And she has very fair skin and a chin line, jaws, and structure, and that's nothing but, well, it's, not too far off of some of the actresses that were Caucasian that played the Egyptians, like Liz Taylor. Let's see what this would look like in a black person's view.
Is part of the Afrocentric business.
Yeah. No, see the bulbous forehead, the different eye sockets, the large bridge nose, of course, enlarged nostrils, the mouth lip structure, even the jaw formation, and the more ovoid shaped head in the first place just doesn't quite fit that. I mean, let's see if I can go back right to it. It just doesn't match very well. No, I don't think that matches
It's part
too
of the
well.
Afrocentric business.
Yeah. It'd be real nice if we could all dream we were pharaohs, but
Claiming that ancient Egypt was ruled by black Africans, in spite of the fact that we've had thousands of years of painted sculptures, bas-relief and three-dimensional sculptures showing the various colors of the people.
one moment here. I'm going to go back just to hear. We'll go back through this again, but there's something I noticed he doesn't even point out here. Here's all these Caucasian people all doing their ceremonies and doing their things. And look at this black guy stuck down here under the chair. You see this? There's your Nubian. Not sure that looks like a real prestigious position of power here. Okay, let's continue.
Bas-relief and three-dimensional sculptures showing the various colors of the people of ancient Egypt at the time.
And you look, and here's the way Nubians are represented in two forms. This is black people. There are tan people. There are a lighter people. There are a Jewish Hebrew kind of people that have the fringe on their stuff. And then there is the workers of ancient Egypt that are always depicted as being more reddish skinned, because red is the desert color, tan is the color of fertility, black is the color of life. And so a lot of times you'll see these depictions of pharaohs where they're painted black, but it's only because of a fertility thing, like the land of Kemet, which never means black like these people, but it actually means black soil, and that black soil that's brought by the Nile is their fertility and their source of life. So to show it in that way never means skin, but it means fertility. Whenever they show a Nubian or an African person, they depict them like this, or with even more engrossed features with yellow gold rings in their ears, and a lot of times a lot more barbaric looking than this. But these are looked as being the subjects of them. These are their subjects. And why do they only have a couple of each one and a whole lot of Nubians? It's because they have a distinct hatred for the Nubians right next to them, and a deep control over the Ethiopians that are below themselves. And they last through 25 dynasties before it ends up getting taken over by Nubians. And at that time they had already left, and the time of drought had come, smallpox running through, and they left and went up through the Levant through the Hyksos Exodus. So let's continue.
Time the movie was made, I don't know if they had the DNA tests, but the notion that the rulers of ancient Egypt were black Africans is total fiction.
Yeah, let's look at that picture just for a second. This is the way they're depicted. They're bringing sacrifices, and they have cows, and they're not bringing the unblemished cow, are they? It's spots, but anyhow. So, and they're bringing offerings. And these offerings that they're bringing with them, believe it or not, looks like they're bringing children. Little children with them, and a monkey. Right? I don't know what the hell's really going on here and what the Egyptians were asking of the Africans here, but some of these Africans are shown with reddish skin. This would be your Ethiopians, perhaps, right? Or the people from Kush that are more known for the leopard skins. There's an ostrich. Isn't that cool? I mean, that's I mean, they catch all these things and they bring them like, here's some exotic stuff. Like you always show later in Greece and Rome, whenever they had the gladiator events and they had brought lions and they brought things. It's almost like a zoo situation where these things from way down in Africa were brought all the way to the pharaohs. Let's continue.
Is total fiction. The DNA of contemporary and historic mummy DNA of Egyptians shows quite a mixture. It's not by any stretch mostly sub-Saharan or black African, as this movie would have you believe. While Dr. Carson doesn't talk in the movie about that issue, he does endorse the book upon which this movie is based, and he spends most of his time propping up black invention mythology. Some bits of reality and truth, but a whole lot of gross distortion, which I'll show you now.
It was John Wadslicker, a black man who invented the automatic shoe lasting machine. It was Charles Brooks, a black man who invented the street sweeper.
This claim is like many others that he and other people make regarding black inventions, most of which are gross distortions or outright inventions. What happens is every time an African American inventor files a patent, someone comes along later and says, oh, he's got a patent for this device here. That means he invented the original one of it, when in reality it can be one of thousands of patents related to a railroad coupler or a traffic light.
So what he's saying here is that, I can go back and one of my ancestors came up with something, but was it actually even used? I mean, this is whenever they're saying their inventor, he invented this, and they put a patent out for it. There are thousands and thousands of patents put out every year that don't get used for anything, even to this day, whenever people have worked things out a lot, and a lot of the new ones are for newer things, but, small, perhaps, inventions, small little things. I remember where you screw in a light bulb, the edge of it being flanged to the degree it is now versus the degree it used to be was a patent. But who invented that and who invented this and little things about it. And I remember looking into this before. Somebody said, man, the light bulb was invented by a black man. And I looked into it, and they had the light bulb before he even hired the black man they give credit for. But in the assembly line, he made a cardboard sleeve. I bet they're going to mention it here in a minute, because he seems to be fixing to mention every black inventor. But he invented a cardboard sleeve that holds on to it so the filament doesn't get touched by human hands and get oil on it, and it also keeps it put in a position so it gets picked up. And it's badass. It's a cool thing to be putting in an assembly line, okay? So it's fantastic that he helped an assembly line position point to do something that made it more precise, and in doing so, it let the filaments last longer. But it's told to you that he invented the light bulb or he made the better filament. Anyhow, and there's hundreds of these, but I'm not degrading what they did do, but let's be straight about what they did do and not act like they invented the car. Why? Because he made a new screw for the way the wheel goes. No. He put out a patent one time for something that never got used. No. Okay, let's continue.
Whatever, but people looking for history that they like will think that it is the original invention of that device, and it simply isn't.
It was Frederick Jones, a black man who invented the refrigeration system for trucks, later adopted for airplanes, boats, and trains.
Lots of other refrigeration systems had been around for decades before this man got his patents, even though he was a very important inventor in his own right.
It was Garrett Morgan, a black man who invented the traffic signal.
This is a picture of a traffic signal that existed in London, England, before Garrett Morgan was even born. The traditional red, yellow, green traffic light that we use today was already on the streets of Cleveland and Detroit, where Dr. Carson is from, before Garrett Morgan applied for his patent. And Garrett Morgan's invention was never manufactured and looks much more like the old London traffic signal than it does.
Yeah, it does, and it flips that, and it flips the arms down, so it looks like it's a deviation on the old London one where he's trying to do an upgrade. But at the time that he's trying to do this upgrade, in towns we already have the red, green, yellow, using lights instead of just using switches, where a man stands right here manually, instead of out in the street now. And he pulls back and forth on this lever, and it says stop, go, stop, go. This is just a small upgrade from standing out in the street with your arm out, hoping you don't get hit by somebody who doesn't know how to drive a car yet. But at this time, they already had the lit 3-color signs, go stop everything, that were starting to already be in use. Did this ever become in use? No, I don't think so. Maybe he'll say here at the end.
A modern traffic light. It had no effect on the development of modern traffic lights at all.
Okay.
He also invented the gas mask that saved lots of lives during the war.
Garrett Morgan did not invent any gas mask at all. Various forms of respirators had been around since antiquity. In the 1840s on, various patents were issued for respirators, some of them with activated charcoal filters. Garrett Morgan's invention had no kind of charcoal filter. It wasn't a gas mask. It was intended to prevent smoke from entering the breathing apparatus. That's all.
Yeah, I remember seeing that all it did was it hooked everything up to a box, and then the box had 2 little tentacles running off that'd be real close to the ground, and because smoke rises, you'd be breathing even though you stood up from the air that wasn't close to the ground. Of course, you look at this thing, and this is just a horrid thing to try to get that out of whenever somebody put a mask in front of it, and right in front of that, just put a filtration device. Anyhow.
Garrett Morgan called this a safety hood. It wasn't a gas mask.
Yeah, that's what the patent was.
The war, Henrietta Bradbury, a black woman who invented the underwater cannon, made it possible to launch torpedoes from submarines.
This woman had 2 patents issued, one for a loader for torpedoes. The patent was issued after World War II.
Yeah, so, yeah, I know that they had torpedoes like 35, 40 years before this. Now, it's the way they word things. Did you hear his words? He said she made it possible for something to happen. She made it possible for torpedoes. They'd been using torpedoes since the war before this. I don't understand where that comment would possibly come from, but he's going to say it. Of course, he believes that the pyramids were all made to hold some grain that would have been about 14 boxcars of a regular, I don't know if you filled up the other chamber too. I don't know. Anyhow, the one chamber's got a volume of about 14 boxcars, which you could easily put out here on the ground rather than building a place that still to this day baffles mankind. But anyhow, let's go.
There had been submarines, torpedoes, and submarines launching torpedoes since the 1800s. She had nothing whatsoever to do with the development of torpedoes or launching them underwater. Nothing.
And while you're talking about black women, you can talk about Madam C.J. Walker, a black woman who invented cosmetic products for women of dark complexion, was the first woman of any nationality in the United States to become a millionaire based on her own efforts. And you walk past the hospital.
Now listen, that's badass. You listen to that. There's a black woman making cosmetics, like the millionaires back when I was a kid. I used to watch Soul Train, man. We always tried to pick up the new dance shit and everything. Not to age myself. I grew up even around disco and stuff like that, you know, Michael Jackson and everything. And so everybody's trying to pick up the new shit. And on Soul Train, they used to have Afro Sheen and Ultra Sheen cosmetics. Y'all remember that? Soul Train with Afro Sheen and had Don Cornelius. Y'all remember that? Well, anyhow, if you don't, and that person became a millionaire in his own right too, and really just followed in her footsteps. Now, she was the first person to become a millionaire out of a business they created out in their own right in the whole United States. It's amazing. Y'all want to put a picture up, man? Put a picture of that lady up. Now, we're going to surround her with some nice stuff, but put a picture of that lady up. Y'all don't even, and as much as, I don't want to sound ethnic or anything weird, but as much as black people utilize makeup and all the cosmetics and things to do things with, that ought to be in every beauty shop. That ought to be a picture of that lady. You know? Anyhow, let's continue.
You can talk about Charles Drew and his contributions to blood banking and understanding of blood plasma.
True.
Daniel Hale Williams, the first successful open heart surgery in the world.
That's an odd statement right there. It really is. And also, this dude's a half black person. But that's cool anyhow. That's cool anyhow. But this dude's half black. In fact, well, I think his mom was half black and his dad was white. So, I don't know, that's a quarter. But regardless, he was looked at that time to have enough in his mix that he was looked at as being Negroid. Anyhow,
He never performed an open heart surgery ever. He performed the second in the world pericardial surgery, the first in the United States. A great accomplishment in itself, but like many inventions, it's been grossly exaggerated by some.
Yeah, see, there we go again. It's the wording of things. And isn't that tricky? Now, words, it's a trick of words to be able to say something like that. And it's the way you present things when you say it, too. And it comes across one way, and then you have somebody else that just goes and looks this shit up, and they're like, no, it's not open heart surgery, it was a pericardial. And the second one ever, and the first in the United States. But it wasn't an open heart surgery. It was a pericardial. Now, if he said that word out there, most people wouldn't know what the hell it is. So he just says open heart, but that's not what it is. So it makes it seem a lot bigger than it was, you know, rather than the tire on the bus, it's the whole bus. But anyhow, we continue.
People with their own racial or political agenda.
Lewis Latimer, who was the right-hand man of Thomas Edison, a black man, who came up with the filament that made the light bulb work for more than 2 or 3 days.
Edison's filament and patent for the light bulb came before Latimer ever went to work for Edison. Latimer's improvement was the use of a paper envelope to hold the filament during the manufacturing process to keep it from being damaged during the manufacturing process.
Right.
Andrew Beard, the automatic.
Now, let's see. That's what I'm talking about. And I remember that because I had to do a paper on Edison anyhow. Let's let it roll from the middle of that out.
Process.
Andrew Beard, the automatic railroad car coupler, which spurred on the Industrial Revolution.
No, he didn't. From the time the automatic railroad car coupler was invented in 1874, 76, something like that, from that time to the turn of the century, 1900, there were 8,000 patents issued for various alterations and proposals to change that system. His was one of those 8,000. He did not invent the automatic railroad car coupler.
And on top of that, it's not the one that we use today, or nothing that he had in his patent that was different from the other people's is used in the one that we use today. He was one of 8,000 people that put out a patent, and they grabbed that. But did you notice? He didn't say that. He didn't say, hey, he made a patent for a railroad coupler. He said he invented the railroad coupler that spurned the Industrial Revolution. So you can see how black people can get a real false sense of things here with just 3 or 4 or 5 things in a row coming out of his mouth. And then later, of course, due to the telephone game, you could get way out in left field with crap. And next thing you know, you were Egyptians and you were Hebrews and you were all kinds of freaky people, huh?
Elijah McCoy, automatic lubrication system.
Does that man look black to you? Well, he's partially black. It's a lubrication system he made. And it's true.
For locomotive engines. And he had so many great inventions, people would say, is that a McCoy? Is that?
He's going to put McCoy on him.
The real McCoy, which is where the term comes from. One of the greatest inventors in the history of man. And people don't know that he was a black man.
The term real McCoy has nothing to do with this inventor, and it was in use for apparently generations before he began inventing. Well,
in fact, that actually supposedly comes back from the Hatfields and the McCoys. Okay? And you know the feud that was between them? And is that the McCoy? Is that the real McCoy? Or is that, you'd wonder, that's somebody coming up the road. Am I supposed to shoot him, or is that not? Is that the real McCoy? That's what I heard from a long time before that, but that myth would have come about before he was ever born. Nefertiti, yeah. I don't know. She just really doesn't to me look like your Nubian princess that they always try to throw on that. Well, Nubian princesses were in Nubia. There's only one time in the 25th dynasty for 93 years that Nubians had control of Egypt, and it's once they all left. Let's continue.
Well, if you believe that the world is 6,000 years old and you believe in talking snakes and talking donkeys, there's no telling what else you might believe in.
That's exactly true. Do you believe in talking snakes? You know, a woman grew from a rib and ate from a magic tree because the talking snake told her to. And somehow people still to this day get right on past that with a smile and a glazed look on their face.